Welcome to the only daily podcast focusing on compliance news of the day. Each morning, start your day with a cup of coffee and Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, to hear about 4 of the top compliance, corruption, or leadership stories you will need to start your day. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
October 14, 2020, the more bad news for Boeing edition. And we begin with that story from the Wall Street Journal. As it turns out, the EU has, and the world, actually WTO, hammers Boeing, which says that it merits EU tariffs of $4 billion on U.S. goods based upon the monies the U.S. government has pumped into Boeing. Tuesday's ruling clears the way for the EU to respond to tariffs that the trade body last October authorized to the U.S. to impose $7.5 billion on Airbus and other imported products. EU officials hope to negotiate a settlement, but with the Trump administration in decline and not inclined to actually reach agreement with anyone on anything, there's no telling, except that the U.S. consumer will continue to pay for Trump's inadequacies. Next up, from the Wall Street Journal, Theranos founder Elizabeth Holmes loses bid to dismiss criminal charges. These are really some new charges brought in June of 2018, and added to the original charges. The Holmes tried to claim that the new indictment was brought too late and muddied the waters. The judge said the new indictments clarified the issues with previous charges. And although the pandemic had delayed grand jury proceedings and continues to pose a hurdle to conducting any trial, the trial will go forward in April. It's expected to last 3 months. So Elizabeth Holmes is fighting this just as hard as she can. But if you've studied anything about her or read Bad Blood, you know she's one of the great fraudsters of this decade. Next up, from the Washington Post, the Nobel Prize in Economics was awarded to Paul Milgram and Robert Wilson of Stanford University for their research into auctions. They did pioneering work in auction theory, which helped develop better real-world transactions as diverse as home buying and government sales of radio spectrums. The ceremony was live streamed. Their discoveries have benefited sellers, buyers, and taxpayers around the world. The men were honored for their theoretical insights into developing the best rules for bidding and establishing the final price. The resulting improvements in auction formats have proved especially useful in auctioning off goods and services that are difficult to price using traditional methods. And finally, in the New York Times deal book, the market is starting to love Joe Biden. Why? Well, it's pretty simple. First of all, he's not an idiot. Second of all, he represents stability. And if there's one thing businesses want, it's stability. So Trump has just gone down a rabbit hole of increasingly chaotic business and trade sanction pronouncements. Witness his within one day saying he was pulling the plug on the stimulus, and then he wanted it doubled. So the business world really abhors that type of chaos, and while Trump thrives on it. So it's not unusual or not surprising really to anyone who's watched. But when Wall Street says it wants a Democrat, that gets everybody's attention. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network and a proud member of C-Suite Radio. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow.